Nominees made headlines over major issues impacting the election. So we're going to talk about both of them. First, let's talk about Donald Trump and his comments surrounding abortion. He said Wednesday he would not sign a nationwide ban on abortion if he wins in November. And this comes just a few days after he said abortion is a state's issue, not a federal one. What do you think this does for his cause?
It was the perfectly coiffed answer. And I was actually very impressed about the language that he used behind it. Of course, Arizona goes and does what it does the day after and destroys Trump's efforts. It's just confirmation that every day of this campaign is going to be another turn, another action that we don't expect. Trump basically has taken the position that America's taken, which is that states should make the decision. Abortion should be safe, legal, but under some constraints, under some limitations. And he had articulated it incredibly well at the beginning of this week. Then Arizona goes and bans abortion in all cases except for a life of the mother in legislation, in law that the governor herself acknowledged was written before women could even vote. And that just set this whole country afire. In the end, abortion is going to help Democrats. It's going to make it more difficult for Trump to get the votes that he needs. And it's a motivating factor, particularly for younger women under age 30 who are not particularly happy with either candidate. I think it's a net gain for the Democrats, and Trump, even though he handled it well, he's going to have problems with this going forward.
As you know, Donald Trump has flirted with the idea of a 15-week federal abortion ban. Since then, he's made clear that he thinks it is a state's issue, but he has taken credit for the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So will this alienate the more conservative, the more pro-life faction of his party?
It could, but there's no way they're going to vote for Joe Biden. They will be upset with Donald Trump for weeks, maybe even months, but they're certainly not going to vote for the incumbent that they feel that this is something that I really want to emphasize. I'm so often asked, why does the evangelical community back Donald Trump, even though he seems to do things that's so hostile to their values and the way they live? And my answer is quite clear. To them, Trump, it's not what Trump does. It's not even what he says. It's his commitment to voters of faith to protect them against a government that is seen to be hostile to their beliefs, to their practices, and only Trump does this. So even though they will be upset with his centrist position on abortion, it's much more supportive of where they stand than the Democratic nominee.
Abortion, as we said, is a losing issue for Republicans. So is this position that Trump has...
But let me jump in. And this is what every reporter has said. And I've been talking about this now for the last 24 hours. I do have to say this, and I should have said this in my answer to the very first question. On some things, it's not whether it's a voting issue. On some things, it doesn't matter where the public stands. I'm a believer in education. I believe that we have to invest more, we have to do better, and I don't care whether voters agree or disagree. My commitment is to my students, my commitment is to the future, and it doesn't matter who's articulating it. I will support those who support my students. I will oppose those who make their lives more difficult. It's the same thing on abortion. It actually doesn't really matter. And I think that we sell the American public short by making everything a political battle, by making everything, how does it impact in November? In fact, I think there's some things more important than a simple election, and that is what's about to happen in this November. I don't consider the outcome to be about the next 4 years. I consider the outcome to be about the next 4 decades. Not what happens in the next election. It's what we do to the next generation that matters most. And it matters so much to me that I apologize for interrupting you, but we have to start looking at our country, not just on election day, but where we're going in the months and years ahead of that, and everything cannot be a political issue that we seek to get advantage over.
That's a really interesting point. And talk